In June of 2019, beside an irrigation canal on the outskirts of Delicias, a body was discovered in a horrifying state. It was 22-year-old Salma, a law student who had vanished just days before. This is a true and heartbreaking story that shook the entire nation of Mexico. Who could have committed such an atrocious act? To understand the full details of this tragic event, I invite you to stay with us until the end. Salma Yahaira Montezoto was born on November 18, 1996, in Las Delicias, Chihuahua, Mexico. She was raised with love, dedication, and a firm hand by her mother Soledad Soto and her older sister Karen Montez. Of her father, there is no known information or presence. From a young age, Salma was a cherished child, sweet, generous, and with a profound sense of empathy. She was always ready to help those around her, a warmth that earned her many sincere friendships at school. She was also an outstanding student, responsible and diligent, with a promising future ahead. Through hard work and perseverance, she earned a place at the Center for Northern University Studies to study law. Her goal was clear: to specialize in crimes against women, driven by a deep desire to make a difference. It was during this time that she met Gualberto Pelcastre, a 25-year-old cook. Though the details of their first meeting are unknown, they soon began a romantic relationship. From the very beginning, those close to Salma viewed Kevin with apprehension. He was possessive, jealous, and prone to aggressive behavior. But Salma, in love, chose to trust him. She believed in him, in their love, and even became engaged, dreaming of a future wedding. The reality, however, was far darker. The relationship spiraled into torment. Kevin's jealousy led to accusations and abuse, always followed by apologies. Like many women in her situation, Salma believed him time and time again. Until April of 2019, when after a particularly violent episode, she made a courageous decision. She broke off the engagement, but Kevin refused to accept it was over. He insisted on seeing her, on talking, on fixing things. Meanwhile, Salma tried to move on, focusing on her studies and her passions. She loved to act, and together with her friend Violeta, she had enthusiastically begun rehearsing for a play. May 31st seemed like any other day. Salma went to her evening classes as usual. The only difference was that she had agreed to meet Kevin afterward. That night, a university classmate walked with Salma to the Paleontology Museum in downtown Delicias. This was where Salma had arranged to meet her ex-boyfriend. When they arrived, he hadn't yet left his nearby job, so Salma told her friend she would wait for him alone by his truck. They said goodbye with a hug. Just like any other night, neither of them could have imagined it would be the last time they would ever see each other. What happened next remains shrouded in uncertainty. It is unknown how Kevin managed to take her or what words were exchanged. What is certain is that on that night, Salma never returned home. As the hours ticked by, her mother, Soledad, began to worry. Salma wasn't one to disappear without a word. Her sister, Karen, tried to reach her repeatedly, calls, messages, but there was no trace. They contacted her friends. No one knew anything. Concern quickly turned to anguish. They went immediately to the Attorney General's office, where a missing person alert was issued and search protocols were activated. Photos of Salma circulated on social media with the hope that someone might have information. The search notices described her as a young woman with a tan complexion, a slim build, standing about 5 feet tall, with an oval face and an asymmetrical mouth. That night, she was wearing a white blouse with a black collar and a smiley face print, blue jeans and white sneakers with black stripes. She had a crescent-shaped scar on her left eyebrow and 2 tattoos, one of 3 hearts on the right side of her abdomen, and another of musical notes on her right wrist. The family feared the worst. They suspected Kevin had taken her by force, that he was holding her captive. Her sister Karen, with a heavy heart, wrote an open letter to the presumed captor pleading with him to let Salma come home. The letter was shared hundreds of times, even reaching national media, but the silence continued, while Salma's family searched for her through every possible means. The authorities were also moving forward with their investigation. They began by interviewing those close to her, but no one had been with Salma on the night she disappeared. Lacking clear information, investigators tried to reconstruct her final steps. Soon, all eyes turned to one person, Kevin, her ex-boyfriend. A witness had seen her with him last. It was the final confirmed trace of Salma alive. The family did not remain silent. They told investigators everything they knew: the assaults, the threats, the pathological jealousy. They recounted how, just weeks earlier, Kevin had beaten Salma and a relative had to intervene to protect her. It was clear that the young man was not only violent but also unpredictable. On June 7th, the police summoned Kevin to give a statement. As this was happening, a terrifying discovery shook the community. A few kilometers down the road between Delicias and Rosales, on the bank of an irrigation canal, a body was found in a heartbreaking state. The condition it was in indicated a deliberate attempt to erase any possibility of identification. It had been there for several days. The remains were transported to the morgue for forensic analysis. Although the victim's identity could not be confirmed at that moment, investigators feared the worst. The body belonged to a young woman between 20 and 30 years old. The brutality of the act suggested that whoever left her there wanted to erase every trace. Forensic experts requested DNA samples from Salma's mother, sister, and another close relative. It was the only way to confirm if the remains belonged to her. Though they provided their samples as requested, Salma's family resisted believing the remains could be hers. They couldn't imagine anyone could cause her such harm. Salma had no enemies. She never bothered anyone. She was a kind young woman, full of life, projects, and dreams. While they awaited the forensic results, the Special Prosecutor's Office for Women took action. On June 14th, Kevin was brought before a judge charged with the crime of unlawful deprivation of liberty. At the initial hearing, the public prosecutor's office claimed to have sufficient evidence to proceed, including security camera footage that allegedly showed Kevin's vehicle near the last place Salma was seen alive. Salma's friend, who was with her that night, was also called to testify. But the defense was quick to respond. They argued the footage was blurry, black and white, and made it impossible to clearly identify the vehicles. According to Kevin's version of events, he left work around 11:30 p.m. and found Salma asleep in the back of his truck. He claimed he woke her up, and shortly after, a man appeared. Salma, according to Kevin, told this man that Kevin was bothering her, and the stranger then punched him. He said Salma left with this unknown man and he never saw her again. The defense also presented his grandmother as a witness. The woman testified that her grandson arrived home around 12:15 a.m. He showered and prepared to go see a friend, but had to come right back because he forgot his wallet. At that moment, she said, a pipe in the bathroom broke, and Kevin set about repairing it before leaving again around 12:30. The friend he mentioned was also called to testify and confirmed his alibi. After hearing the witnesses and reviewing the evidence, Judge Alejandro Carrasco Borunda concluded there was insufficient evidence to prosecute Kevin. In his opinion, Salma had met with him voluntarily, which meant the elements of the crime he was charged with were not met. After being released, Kevin left the city, and for several months his whereabouts were unknown. The wait for the DNA results was long and agonizing. During that time, her loved ones, classmates, professors, and community activists united to demand answers. They organized masses and marches hoping to find her and convinced that Kevin should be rearrested. Finally, on July 29th, the results of the genetic analysis arrived. The body was indeed Salma's. They confirmed she had been murdered on June 1st, just hours after meeting with Kevin. The cause of death was a severe neck injury. Furthermore, there were other signs suggesting the person responsible had experience with knives or similar tools, like those used in a kitchen. Even though the tests confirmed the body's identity beyond a doubt, Salma's family could not accept it. In their pain, they requested a new DNA test from a private laboratory. Agents from the state attorney general's office eventually obtained a warrant to search Kevin's home. During the search, they seized a knife and the clothes he had allegedly worn on the day Salma disappeared. According to reports, these clothes had what appeared to be bloodstains. They also confiscated his cell phone and his truck, where traces of blood were found. On September 25th, after 4 long and painful months, Salma's family had to face the truth. There would be no miraculous return. A new analysis confirmed what they already feared. The remains belonged to her, despite the profound grief that engulfed them. Salma's mother Soledad and sister Karen decided to transform their suffering into action. They began to mobilize, leading marches to demand justice. They called for the arrest of Kevin, whom they directly pointed to as responsible. Frustration was mounting. In her desperation, Karen created a social media account called the Justice Network for Salma. From there, they began to circulate images of Kevin, publicly holding him responsible for the crime. The majority of users showed solidarity, demanding justice and sharing the post. Kevin's photograph went viral, along with his occupation, cook and butcher. This detail became particularly relevant, as the killer's profile matched someone with experience handling knives, given the way the body had been manipulated, even removing skin to hide the tattoos that would have aided in identification. Karen also published a direct message to the alleged aggressor. She called him a manipulator and a psychopath, urging him to come out of hiding and face the consequences. Feeling the pressure, Kevin chose to defend himself publicly. Through a social media profile, he claimed to be the victim of a smear campaign. He shared screenshots of private messages that he alleged were threats. He insisted that after Salma's disappearance, he had cooperated with the authorities and had even voluntarily handed over his cell phone. He accused the Attorney General of deliberately hiding security footage that would prove his innocence. Then he turned his words against Salma and her family, claiming the campaign against him stemmed from their disapproval of his relationship with her. He attempted to justify the episodes of violence by accusing Salma of having relationships with older, even married men. Finally, he explained that he had not fled but had left the city because he could no longer bear the harassment. Salma's family did not respond to these statements. They chose to remain steadfast on the legal path. Amid the pain, the authorities finally released Salma's remains to her family, allowing them to say their goodbyes and lay her to rest. A week later, the suspect's family offered their own version of events. They asked for the social harassment to stop, asserting that they were experiencing a double suffering: for the public pressure on Kevin, and for the death of Salma, whom they claimed to have grown to love like one of their own. Both the young man's mother and grandmother said that Salma spent a great deal of time at their home. They said Kevin treated her with affection, supported her with her studies, and bought her the books she needed. Kevin's grandmother shared that her grandson suffered greatly during his detention. Visibly moved, she thanked another young inmate who had protected him until the moment of his release. She also spoke of the threats Kevin had received on social media and commented on the treatment they had endured from the authorities. At that point, she said, only the truck had been returned to them, a vehicle in which no incriminating evidence was found. Kevin's cell phone, however, remained in the custody of the prosecutor's office. For her part, Kevin's mother insisted they were not on the run, nor were they in hiding. She assured everyone they were still living in the same house they always had, with no intention of leaving. She expressed her faith that the truth would eventually come to light and that the real culprits would be found. By March of 2020, on International Women's Day, Salma's name once again began to circulate widely across social media. Her loved ones shared a letter, accompanied by her photograph, a poignant reminder that justice had yet to be served. And while there were no official updates on the case, details began to leak to the press. The prosecutor's office had already opened an investigation file on Kevin. It was even rumored that a hearing had taken place, though the specifics were kept confidential. Then on March 12th, agents from the public ministry alongside the state investigation agency executed a new search warrant on Kevin's home, located in the northern part of Delicias. During the inspection, they found knives and hatchets that immediately caught their attention. They also discovered a piece of women's intimate apparel, a tampon, and biological remains that appeared to be human fat. Several weeks passed before forensic analysis confirmed the unthinkable. The evidence found at the scene belonged to Salma. With that confirmation, a judge issued an arrest warrant for Kevin. This time, the charge was aggravated homicide based on gender, femicide. The arrest was carried out on June 5th in the city of Delicias at a residence in the Colonia del Empleado neighborhood. Salma's family received the news with a profound sense of relief. In stark contrast, Kevin's relatives claimed the arrest was illegal, arguing that no formal warrant had been issued. An unnamed family member attempted to defend his character, stating that Kevin had been complying with a court order to report to the courthouse every Wednesday. They insisted he had never tried to flee and denied the social media rumors that he had bribed the judge who released him back in 2019. On June 11th, the arraignment hearing took place. It was there that a new revelation emerged. Kevin was not only facing the charge of femicide, but also the charge of disappearance committed by a private individual, which further compounded his legal peril. In Courtroom 3 of the Abraham Gonzalez Judicial District, the public ministry presented forensic evidence and witness testimonies that painted a horrifying picture of the cruelty with which the crime was committed. They also successfully discredited Kevin's version of events, in which he had claimed Salma was taken by force by armed men. After the prosecution presented its case, the presiding judge, Cesar Alejandro Carrasco Borunda, determined there was sufficient evidence to proceed to trial. He ordered Kevin to be transferred to the Cerizo 1 prison in Aquiles Cerdán, to be held in preventive custody. The prosecutor's office requested 4 months to close its investigation, a period the court approved. While authorities continued to gather evidence, Kevin filed several appeals alleging violations of his rights. These legal maneuvers would delay the process for more than 2 years. Despite everything, Salma's family did not give up. Her sister Karen expressed that they had no choice but to wait, fully aware that the wheels of justice turned slowly. And she was not wrong. A year later, Karen shared a message on social media describing what those 3 years without her sister had been like. She wrote that both she and her mother still felt a great emptiness, learning to live with the absence day by day. She remembered Salma as a cheerful, funny young woman, and she reaffirmed her promise to get justice in her name. When Kevin had exhausted all legal avenues to postpone the proceedings, the evidence hearing finally took place in May of 2023. He participated via video conference. A month later, the trial began before a panel of judges, Salvador Mario Garcia, Diana Mireya Peña, and Manuel Arturo Quintana. For Salma's family and friends, the start of the trial represented a glimmer of hope for answers. They needed to know why the accused had taken the young woman's life. During the hearings, prosecutor Wendy Chavez Villanueva, head of the Special Prosecutor's Office for Gender-Based Crimes Against Women, laid out the case. She argued that Kevin had abducted Salma, taken her life, and then attempted to conceal her identity in an extreme and brutal manner. Testimonies described episodes of physical and psychological violence he had inflicted upon her. Several witnesses swore they had seen bruises on Salma's body on different occasions, clear signs of abuse. As for the physical evidence, the public ministry presented the kitchen knives and hatchets found at the defendant's home, along with other forensic results. During the trial, Kevin chose to represent himself. He offered none of the explanations Salma's family so desperately longed to hear. Instead, he attempted to refute the prosecution's arguments. However, the court found the evidence to be clear and overwhelming. On August 8th, in a unanimous decision, Kevin Gualberto Pelcastre was found guilty of both crimes. Regarding the charge of disappearance, the court noted that multiple witnesses confirmed he was the last person to see Salma alive on the night of May 31, 2019. It was established that he had abducted her, murdered her, and hidden her body. As for the femicide charge, the judges pointed to the existence of gender-based motives, as he was in a romantic relationship with the victim. This fact was corroborated by witnesses for both the prosecution and the defense. The final element the court considered in confirming this crime was the extreme cruelty inflicted upon Salma's body, an act that was a direct assault on her human dignity. The prosecution considered the verdict a significant step forward and expressed hope that, at the sentencing hearing, Kevin would receive a sentence commensurate with the gravity of his actions. Finally, on August 16th, the court delivered its sentence: 70 years in prison for Kevin Gualberto Pelcastre for having taken the liberty and the life of Salma Yahaira Montezoto, his former partner. He was also ordered to pay 711,500 Mexican pesos, equivalent to about $43,000 in damages to the young woman's family, and was mandated to attend psychological therapy. Soledad, Salma's mother, listened to the sentence with a quiet serenity. She said they had waited 4 years for this moment, but in the end, justice had arrived. Despite everything Kevin had done, she said she forgave him, not for his sake, but for her own peace of mind. She explained that she did not want to carry the burden of resentment any longer. She also sent a clear message to other women. Damaging relationships must be ended in time. She warned that a man who hits you does not love you, he harms you. For that reason, she urged anyone suffering from violence to walk away at the very first sign. What message does the strength of Soledad and Karen in their long fight for justice leave with you? How do you think we can better support women who are suffering from violence? We want to know your opinion. Let us know in the comments.